I'm very happy to meet you all once again in the second session. So just before going into the course outcomes, we'll have just a slight recall. Slight recall on what we have seen yesterday. We have started the design. The OBE process has four stages. The first thing you have to decide what outcome you are going to achieve. So that is defined in terms of PEO and PO and PSO. Then the curriculum is designed in order to achieve that objective. That part we are seeing now. We have to concentrate now on designing the course outcome. Then the later parts are learning and teaching and assessment. So yesterday itself, we talked about vision and mission and how to draw your program educational objectives and how to frame your program outcomes and program specific outcomes. So in today's session, we'll see about writing course outcomes for each course. So you have to remember for today's session, in order to understand the COPO mapping, the program outcomes. So for example, I have taken the POs that we have framed for our college. So please remember the order also so that we'll be able to follow what I'm going to say when you are doing in COPO mapping. So PO1 is disciplinary knowledge. PO2 is critical thinking, problem solving, and analytical reasoning. PO3 is research related skills and scientific reasoning. And PO4 is communication skills and digital literacy. PO5 is teamwork and leadership quality. PO6, multicultural competence with moral and ethical awareness. PO7 is self-directed and lifelong learning. So the first three POs are addressing the Bloom's levels from K1 to K6. And PO4, PO5 and PO6 and PO7 are the other skills required for a graduate. So the first three are in order from the K1 level and up to the K6 level. The three are going to address. And what I am saying now, you'll understand when I talk about the COPO mapping later. So please do remember the order of the POs. So just another recall, course outcomes. What are course outcomes? They are nothing but the statements that describe what the students are expected to know at the end of the course and what they are able to do at the end of each course. So usually whenever I say outcome, it should be related to the knowledge, skills, and behavior or attitude towards that particular program or course. Then course outcome should address what the students are going to learn, what the students are going to do, in which level the students are going to think. So course outcomes statement should contain an action verb that describes the expected performance of the students, and that expected performance should be observable and measurable. And already I talked about Bloom's levels, K1 to K6. From lower level K1, remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So using these K levels, we are able to assess your student. You are going to measure the performance of the students in terms of course outcomes. So it is actually a tool. Bloom's taxonomy is a tool used to write the course outcomes. So we are going to write 5 COs for each course. So the course outcomes should be defined with the Bloom's taxonomy tool. On successful completion of the course, the learner should be able to CO1 may be written with K2 level. CO2 may address K3 level, CO3 K4 level, CO4 K5 level, and CO5 K6 level. So it will be the best if you follow the order K2, K3, K4, K5, K6, not in any random order. Just because only after remembering you can go for understanding, only after understanding you can go for applying, and then analysis and evaluation and creation. So it is always better to follow the order of the K levels when you write the course outcomes. And another thing is, I'm not saying that this is a format. This is a format we used to give in our college, but you can have your own format. You can also decide how many K levels you want to have for a particular program. Always it is better. I will say it is best if you have all the levels. And K1 and K2 can be merged. So whenever I am saying K2, it will also address K1. So we'll have usually the 5 levels K2 to K6. So course outcomes in our college are written by considering the entire course content. Whenever you write course outcomes, the course outcomes are written by considering the course content on the whole syllabus, and course outcomes are not written unit wise. Usually you'll have 5 units. You need not write one course outcome for one unit. So depending on the K level, you have to summarize all this. And if it is remembering or understanding level, that course outcome should address or should cover all the 5 units. So the course outcomes should not be written unit wise. If it is written unit wise, it may be easier to set question paper, but it will not actually measure the performance of the particular student in a particular course. So actually, whenever you write course outcome, the course outcomes should be written by only a person, a teacher that who has the mastery over the subject. So when you have a mastery over the subject, you know the subject very well, you are able to view the syllabus as a whole, on the whole, and you can summarize what are the things you should know first, understand first, and then what are the things you want your students to apply, analyze, and evaluate in succession. So suppose that you are new to the course, you cannot write correctly the course outcomes. And another thing is when you write course outcomes, you have to discuss with your peers. So each and every teacher will have their own views. So the course outcomes written by one teacher will not be accepted by another teacher. There may be differences, but when you discuss, more and more betterment is possible. So usually in the department level, you can convene meetings to write properly the COs. And the COs shall address all the 5 levels from K2 to K6 in order. Suppose if you think it is not possible to write like that for a particular syllabus, then the COs can address a minimum of at least 4K levels. So if you say that it is 3K levels, then you will be giving more importance to one particular K level. So that is not advisable. So we can have a minimum number of K levels, but this is institution dependent. Your institution can decide what type of methodology you are going to use for writing CBOs. But it will be better if you write all the K levels. Some colleges are adapting this scheme, write all the K levels in order depending on the course. But whenever you frame the syllabus first, when you decide the content first, it will be very difficult to write the course outcomes. So what I would say or what I would suggest is that first, if you know the subject very well, then decide first what are the things you want the students to know. Write the course outcomes first. To achieve that course outcome, you frame the syllabus. That is a better way if you are starting the syllabus from the beginning so that all the K levels can be addressed. Then I will give you a sample of course outcomes. So to be first familiar with the course outcomes, I'll first take the topic as Indian classical music that can be understood by everybody. On successful completion of the course, the learner should be CO1. Explain the architecture and working principle of Indian vocal and instrumental music. that is in the K2 level. And the second one is in the K3 level, identify the changes in the form of compositions and singing styles. And CO3 is nothing but analyze the different styles of singing or playing instruments. And fourth one, K5 level, is prepare critics on the musical concert. And next level is K6, create own compositions in music. So this concept I have taken just because it is easy for us to understand what is K2, K3, K4, K5 and K6. And you can take another example of course outcomes for database management system. On successful completion of the course, the learner should be able to explain the DBMS concepts, data models, database architecture, and SQL relational database terminology. Construct ER models using ER concepts and translate the tables into relational tables, use SQL query constructs, and distinguish, compare different data models used to represent databases. Criticize a database design and improve the design by means of normalization methods. Create PL/SQL blocks, exceptions, and triggers. So likewise, you can write for all the courses. Depending on the course content, you can frame the course outcomes. This is a course outcomes for American literature. On successful completion of the course, the learner should be able to explain the literary works of various genres, identify the writing styles and techniques of American writers, analyze the themes, characters, moral and ethical values, and socio-political influences, appraise the works of American writers, develop critics for the works of different writers in a particular period. So likewise, we can decide on the course outcomes depending on the syllabus you frame for the course. So these are some examples I wanted to give to you as examples of course outcomes. And what is the relation between our CO, PO, and PEO? So our POs and PSOs are same just because they have one correspondence to each other. So whenever I say PSO, it means PO also. So just will take further only the concept of PO. Course outcomes you have written now that should be mapped with POs. POs are already mapped with PEOs by means of PO mapping. Now we are going to map the course outcomes with the PO. So if you do this, then the COs will be mapped to POs, POs will already map to PEOs. So how to do the CO, PO mapping of courses? So when you write 5 COs, the COs will be mapped with the possible POs based on the meaning, the relationship that exists between your written CO and a particular PO. Compulsorily, a CO, one course outcome, should be mapped to at least one of the program outcomes. So the CO must be mapped to at least one PO. So you should not write a CO that cannot be mapped with any of the POs. So the POs which are not related to the COs, but the COs when you write, it may not relate to some of the POs. It will not address all POs also. That's not possible. Some may do, but all the POs cannot be addressed. The POs which are not related to any of the COs may be left blank. You can put a blank space or hyphen or even zero. And a course can address a minimum of 4 POs. So this we have fixed in our institution. You can decide in your own institution how many POs a course can address. So out of 7 POs, the particular course should address a minimum of 4. And all the courses, suppose that you have 7 POs now, suppose that your course address only 4 POs, the remaining 3 POs are not addressed by studying this particular course. In that case, in the 3-year program, you should have another course to cover the remaining 3 POs. So altogether, collectively, when you take all the courses that are studied by a particular student in a particular program, should cover all the POs. So all the courses considered together must cover all the POs. So this you should remember. A CO, course outcome, must be mapped to at least one PO. It may not cover all POs, but all the course outcomes together, the 5 course outcomes together, should address a minimum of 4 POs, and all the courses in your program must cover all the program outcomes. Now this is a CO-PO mapping table given by the UGC, suggested by UGC, and we have framed 7 POs. They are on the top, and in the left you have CO, 5 COs, CO1, CO2, CO3, CO4 and CO5. Now you had to relate CO1 with PO1, CO1 with PO2 and so on, and write the entry, what type of relation it has with PO1 and PO2, etc. Depending on that, you have to calculate the weightage of the course. After calculating the weightage of the course, you have to calculate the weighted percentage of the course contribution to the POs. So this is the format. You have to write in the left COs and in the top you have to write POs. This is the matrix actually which correlates your course outcomes with the program outcomes. So this matrix is filled up using the following procedure. This table is called course articulation matrix. This CO-PO mapping table is called course articulation matrix. The entries within this are nothing but expressing the relation between COs and POs. Either you can write using the letters H, high, or medium, or moderate, and low, HML, and dash or space for no correlation or 0 for no correlation. But usually instead of writing the HML letter grades, we can use 9. This also suggested by UGC in evaluation response. 9 for high correlation if the relation between your CO with the PO is between 71 to 100%. And 3 medium if the range of contribution of CO with respect to PO is between 31 to 70. And 1 low for range of contribution of CO with respect to PO between 1 to 30. And dash for no correlation. So we had to understand the meaning of the return CO and what is the meaning of the PO. PO1 is disciplinary knowledge. So what contribution is possible from this course outcome to this particular PO, how far they are related, whether it is lightly correlated, it has no relation at all, whether it is lightly correlated or whether it is moderately related to that or strongly related to that, that you have to decide. So we cannot calculate the percentage, but depending on the content, you can decide whether it is strong correlation or light or moderate correlation. So you are going to use only the weights as 1, 3, 9. So as a sample, let me work with a particular course. Course outcomes of constitutional and social issues of India. First, I am writing the course outcomes from K2 to K6. CO1 to CO5, I have chosen this as outline the basic structure of Indian Constitution, that is in the K2 level. And second one is identify and use the existing appropriate model to solve problems, that is K3, and distinguish between democracy and other forms of governments, that is K3, sorry, K4, and assess the socio-economic and political problem scenario in India, that is K5. Build a model of equitable society by analyzing the problem scenario, that is K6. So for this particular course with these 5 COs, what is the CO-PO mapping table? So COs I have written, this is for understanding purpose. I have framed for explanation. This you need not do like this. Just in order to explain to you, I have formulated this with the help of this table. CO1 to CO5 I have written. What I have written as course outcomes I have copied here. And in the top, you have the PO, 7 POs, PO1, PO2, PO3, PO4, PO up to 7. Now in this, just you remember the order. PO1 is disciplinary knowledge. PO2 is nothing but critical thinking, problem solving, analytical reasoning. PO3 is research related skills. PO4 is communication skills. PO5 is teamwork leadership. PO6 is multicultural competence, and PO7 is lifelong learning. So when you take the first three, PO1 is disciplinary knowledge. With the particular disciplinary knowledge, what can you do? With disciplinary knowledge, more things are possible, but with the knowledge alone, you can restrict yourself to the levels of K2 and K3. So K2 is just remember understanding, and K3 just you can apply from what you have learned. So K2, K3 is possible with PO1. And with PO2, critical thinking, problem solving, analytical reasoning. So with knowledge, up to you can go to create level, problem solving, critical thinking. So it addresses the outcomes from K2 to K6. Then PO3 is research related skills. So it starts from evaluate K4 to K6. With this understanding of PO1, PO2 and PO3, let us map first the COs. CO1 is addressing K2. Outline the basic structure. It is addressing the K2 level. So PO1 with K2 and K3. So for this, you can give only 1, 3, 9. So this is understanding level, but PO1 is addressing K2 as well as K3. So depending on the concept you are going to give as a course teacher, you have to decide whether you can give 1 or 3. But you cannot give a maximum of 9 just because they don't have sufficient knowledge in order to apply that K3. So if it is K3, you can give full 9. Now this particular CO is addressing only K2. So either you can give 1, suppose you are going to give only a light concept, you can give 1 or 3. Strong means you can give 3. Then for CO1, PO2, it is CO1 is with K2 level, but PO2 is up to K6. So either you can give 1 or 3. Excuse me. Just I'm saying that it is 3 just because the basic structure of the whole Indian constitution you are going to explain here. So I have given 3. So it's your will and wish with the flexibility of the course teacher whether you are going to take it as light or with some moderate level. And with PO1 or PO3, it is going to address K4 to K6, but this is only knowledge. So understanding. So it is light. So 1. I am giving 1. Then for CO2, it is K3 level. So PO1 maximum K3. So you can give full weightage 9. And for PO2, it can go up to K6, but we are at K3 level. So I'm giving 3. Then for K3 with PO3, I'm giving 3. Suppose that applying is not possible in your particular course, you can even have a dash if it is not related, or lightly means 1. Then for CO3, it is addressing K4. But in order to evaluate, they should have a thorough knowledge in the discipline. So I'm giving K4, K5, K6 for all these things. PO1 as 9. And for PO2, if it is K4, it is in the middle. K2 to K6, it is in the middle. So I'm giving 3. For K5 and K6, for CO4 and CO5, I am giving the full weightage 9. And for CO3 to CO5, for PO3, I am giving for K4 3, for K5 and K6 9. So this is the weightage that you can be, that the course teacher can decide how much weightage you are going to give. So this is based on the Six Sigma rule by the UGC. The Six Sigma tool is the cause and effect matrix they have taken, and it is nothing but it is known very well by the commerce and business administration staff members. So cause and effect matrix is nothing but input based one for this kind of input, how to get this output. In order to get that output, how they are correlated, how this input will bring that particular product. In order to achieve that particular outcome, what success story they can bring. For that, they will use this Six Sigma tool. The Six Sigma tool is suggested by the UGC. There in the cause and effect matrix will relate the input with the output with the help of these 1, 3, 9. So this COPO mapping table, you have to decide with the help of the Six Sigma tool with the weights 1, 3, 9. In the cause and effect matrix of Six Sigma tool, they will correlate the inputs to the outputs with the help of the factors 1, 3, 9. That 1, 3, 9 factors are suggested by the UGC in the evaluation reforms. But what I am suggesting here is nothing but a thumb rule that we follow in our college by studying the levels of the POs from P1, PO1 to PO3. PO1 is addressing K2 and K3. PO2 is addressing K2 to K6. PO3 is K4 to K6. So out of this, PO1 is covering K2 to K3 means we can give either for K2 1 or 3. For K3, you can give full. For PO2, K2 to K6. So just people are raising just issues when to put 1, when to put 3. They don't know, just because they want to give for that course more weightage, they will give fully 9. So just to address that particular part, we have suggested a thumb rule: when to use 1, when to use 3, when to use 9. So this particular concept you can decide in your institution also. It is not compulsory. Just for fixing a rule kind of thing, I'm saying this, you can follow this. So PO3 means K4 to K6. For K4 level, you can give either 1 or 3. For K5 and K6, you can give 9. So PO4 and PO5, these are all not related to Bloom's levels. So you should first relate your CO with this particular PO4. Outline the basic structure of Indian Constitution. If a particular UG student is capable of communicating this in her own terms, then you can give 3. Or if the outline alone is known to her, how much is possible? Will she be able to communicate? Only to the lighter level means you can give 1. Then for CO2, identify K3. So you have to relate. When she knows how to apply it, then she may be better able to explain. So in that case, you can give 3. So likewise, we can fix for this. If it is related, how far it is related. If it is possible, then you can give either 1 or 3 or 9. If it is not related at all, it is not related to PO5, teamwork, leadership, multicultural competence means you can just give a dash. If it is used for lifelong learning, if with this, if a student is able to read further reading, able to read further on that line, whether it will prolong to lifelong learning, then in that case, you can give 9 or 3. But that depends on the particular teacher, how you are going to take the course. That depends on the particular batch of students also. So that is why I'm saying the course outcome that we write depends on the particular scenario, particular course teacher, as well as particular batch of students. For a particular batch of students, in order to get the improvement, you can design the course outcomes. Then after writing this, all these values are entered in the form of a matrix. The same matrix I have written here, PO1, what weightage I have given there. I have copied everything, the numbers here in the COPO mapping table. and I will add all this. The 39, PO1 first column is 39. 3 plus 4 nines. So sum of all these weights equal to 39. Then PO2, the sum 3 plus 3 plus 3, 9 plus 9, it is 27. Then 1 plus 1 plus this. These are all column sums. And after this 39, 27, 25, 25, everything is nothing but weightage of the course. Then there's a next row is nothing but weighted percentage of the course contribution to the POs. That you cannot write now. This CO-PO mapping table, this course articulation matrix should be present in your syllabus after writing course outcome. So before your syllabus, in the first portion, after the title, you will write the course outcomes. Then under the course outcomes, you'll be having the CO-PO mapping table, the course articulation matrix. There you'll calculate this weightage of the course. But you have to first leave this row as empty. The weighted percentage of course contribution to POs as empty. This is designed only for this particular course. Likewise, for a program, suppose that it is a BSc Computer Science program is in that program, how many courses will be studied by the student, including part 1, part 2, all the courses under part 3, part 4, whatever be the credit, for all the courses appeared by the student in the examination, all the courses should be included here. For all the courses, the respective course teachers will write the course outcome and form the CO-PO mapping table, calculate the weightage of their own courses. After completing the weightage of all the courses, you have to put one matrix. That matrix is nothing but program articulation matrix. So before going into the program articulation matrix, I have given another example. Just we can go through this course outcomes of digital electronics. I have considered this here again K2 to K6. For digital electronics, I have written 5 COs with K2 level, K3 level, K4 level, K5 and K6. The mapping table I have chosen here, the same kind of terminology I am using here. For CO1, for K2, how it is related. For CO2, how it is related. For CO3 and so on. Just because all are in the same order, K2, K3, K4, K5, K6, you can use the same rule. If it is related, you cannot. If it is not related to communication, teamwork, and multicultural competence, you can leave this as blank. But not all courses in your program should be like this. PO5 and PO6 should be covered in any one of the program, any number of programs, but not it is not compulsory that all the courses should address this. So this is another example. Similar to the previous example, I have calculated the weightage of the course as 39, 27, 25, etc. Now I have included one weighted percentage of the course with 39. I have told you for a BSc Computer Science students, what are all the courses studied in the first semester. You have a list. Second semester, what are all the courses? Third semester. Likewise, in all the 6 semesters, what are all the courses she is going to appear in the examination. You have to list out all the courses, list out the weights of all the courses and get the total of all the courses. That matrix, I'll first see, I'll just use first the matrix, program articulation matrix, then go for weight. Program articulation matrix is the one where you have the list of courses studied by all the students of a particular program. Suppose here they are studying some 40 courses, you have to list all the 40 courses here. In all the 6 semesters, what are the courses studied by the student? I have put the weights under PO1 to PO7 and get the total weightage of all courses contributing to this PO. So I will be calculating the column sum of all the weights. Suppose it is 940. So I have taken this total of some 30 to 40 courses studied by this particular student in a particular program. That may be 940, for example. For PO2, the total may be 850. For PO3, it is 760 likewise. So there is no limit in this number. Just for number's sake, I have given here. That depends on the weightage that the courses are allotted by the respective course teachers. So now you got the idea. For PO1, 940 is the total weightage. So I'll come to the previous table. PO1, weighted percentage of course contribution to POs is nothing but 39 by 940. So you have to calculate the weighted percentage as 39 by 940 into 100. It's because it is weighted percentage. For the next one, the total weightage in PO2 is 850. So 27 by 850 into 100. Third one, 760. 25 by 760 into 100. And fourth one, 21 by 300 into 100. Yeah, empty means you can give just 0. PO7. Just like this, you have to calculate. So this row in each and every course can be completed only after all the course teachers have completed, including Part 1 Tamil, Part 2 English, as well as any courses taken by the students under NME, life-oriented course, job-oriented course, Part 4 courses, computer literacy, or peace education, environmental studies, everything. Whatever be the course that are included in that grade, in that mark sheet, or everything should be considered. And all the courses should be given some weightage. And there also you have to concentrate whether you are going to give more weightage to the core courses or to Part 1, Part 2 courses. So as a course teacher, the Part 1, Part 2 teachers will be allotting their weights. Sometimes the weights are depending on the course teacher. Sometimes the weightage allotted may be different. Some course teachers will be so strict that they will allot only a minimum weight, and some will be allotting more weight. Just to restrict the course teachers, we have given the thumb rule. But if we are planning for a BSc Computer Science program, you should allot more weightage to your computer science core courses, just because all the additional courses are supportive courses to your program. So Part 1 Tamil, Part 2 English, Part 4 courses, everything, NME or anything will support to some extent your core program. So the weightage allotted to them, you can fix in the institution. So it is my suggestion, but my opinion, but the institution has to decide so many factors in this. So when you design this, you will be encountering so many problems. What is the fixation you require? Likewise. So all the problems I cannot address here. When the course is designed, when the program is designed, you will be encountering this, but you have to concentrate on the total program. In the total program, how much weightage, how much weight. For example, I'm saying 940. Out of this 940 credits, for part 1, how many credits? For part 2, how many credits? You can split up and study. And for core courses, how many credits? How many weights? So how many weights are allotted for core courses? How much of weightage is allotted for part 1, part 2, and part 4? Compare and then decide whether it is okay. So this is the program articulation matrix. SPAM matrix, I'll say. This will be having the weights. you have another matrix that deals with weighted percentage. This weighted percentage 4.15 is nothing but what I have calculated using this 39 by 940. 39 by 940 is nothing but 4.15. 27 by 850 is nothing but 3.18. So that calculated row, the last row in your course articulation matrix of all the courses should be copied here. For all the programs, first you have put the weight table. From that you have calculated total. From the total, we have gone back to the course articulation matrix and we have calculated that particular row. After calculating that particular row, we have to again form a new matrix called the program articulation matrix. There we have to calculate, copy that weighted percentage of all these courses. And when you total the columns, it will be 100. Just because it is weighted percentage. So you can check with that. The calculation should be correct. All the columns, you can put this in Excel format so that automatically total is calculated. So this weighted percentage table should be present in your syllabus. Just because for calculating the attainment of the students, we will be using only this weighted percentage, not the weights. From the weights, we have calculated weighted percentage. So this table will be used for calculating the attainment of the students, CO attainment, etc. So for after writing course outcomes, we had to formulate a course articulation matrix like this. After this course articulation matrix, you have to prepare this PAM matrix in terms of weights. Then with this weight matrix, you have to calculate the weighted percentage PAM matrix. This weighted percentage matrix will be useful for all the 3 years in the duration of your program, 3-year duration of the program. After completion of each course, the course attainment has to be calculated. For that calculation, you have to use this. Only from this, how much contribution this VO is having, the CO attainment will be calculated, and that CO attainment is used with the help of weight to calculate the PO attainment. So now the second part is finished. We have framed the objective of the outcome-based education in terms of PEO, PO, and PSO, and we have framed the course outcomes in order to achieve that. After framing everything, the curriculum, we have to go to the third step, that is the teaching and learning process. For that, you can plan constructive alignment. Constructing alignment is a term coined by the Professor John Biggs in 1999. It is nothing but a way of creating a learning environment to the students to support the students' learning. What are the learning activities? What are the teaching strategies the teacher is going to plan in order to achieve this desirable outcomes? So constructive is the term where the student has to cooperate so that the student has to construct some learning experience through the relevant or suitable learning activities that are provided by the teacher. So without the student cooperation, the teacher cannot force anything into the learner. So the students should construct her learning through the learning activities as suggested by the course teacher. Alignment refers to the act of the teacher. This refers to the teaching strategies as well as the teaching methods adapted, various methods adapted, and the assessment methods which are used to measure the performance of the student. So in order to achieve the objectives, usually in the beginning of the semester, before taking the course teacher, each course teacher can plan what are all the teaching strategies she is going to adapt in order to achieve this course outcome. So in order to make your students to achieve a particular outcome, For CO1, for example, what type of strategy you're going to follow, teaching method you're going to follow. For that, what are the assessment tools you're going to use? What are the learning activities you're going to refer to your student? After teaching, you have to coach. Coach or suggest some activities, plan some activities that leads to the learning. So that we call as constructive alignment process. And for each course outcome, we will ask similar to getting a work plan, we'll prepare a constructive alignment for each course. In the beginning of the course, they can plan for the teaching strategies and learning activities and as well as assessment methods, so that they can be very well planned. So, and for this particular CO, I can do this. I can give an assignment. I can give a video preparation. Likewise, so the teacher can plan the activities and also assessment methods. What portion can be allotted for term test? Which CO will be covered in term test? Which CO will be covered in a quiz? Or which CO is covered in a seminar, like that. Then the last part is nothing but the assessment and attainment in OBE. Assessment is nothing but the processes that are carried out by the institution in order to evaluate the performance of the students, either for a course or for a program. There are not all the processes from term test, from internal, from to in semester examination, all the processes that are carried out by the institutions are nothing but the assessment. But what is attainment? Attainment is nothing but the action of achieving the standard result. So attainment refers to the outcome. You are planning for one outcome. So whenever you aim for something, you have to suppose that you want to give a pass mark for this number of students. You should get 90% of the students getting pass. So usually in traditional method, we'll fix the standard. 90% of the students should get passed. Similar to this, now near pass is not essential. So likewise, how much should be the achievement of the students? What standard you expect from the student? This standard should be fixed by the institution. So in order to fix the attainment, you should establish a standard, and you should decide that standard is achieved or not through the assessment tools. And usually you have two types of assessment in OBE, direct assessment and indirect assessment. Direct assessment is nothing but it refers to the act of judging the performance through internal assessment tests, in-semester examinations, and others, quiz, seminar, case studies, projects, internship, mini projects, seminar, assignment, online quiz, group discussion, anything, all the components that you can give in a particular course. These are all coming under direct assessment method. But these methods should be adapted by getting the prior knowledge of the sample, whether it will add up to the student learning. Just because for the namesake, you should not use all this. For a particular course, what are the methodology you can use? What are the assessment tools you can use? That can be fixed by the college. So they are called direct assessment tools. So indirect assessment methods are nothing but done through the surveys and interviews. Usually we'll be having the feedback mechanism. The feedback mechanism comes under indirect assessment. It asks from the stakeholders to reflect their views on about the students' learning. So the feedback of the students, feedback of the peers, the feedback of the parents, everything is everything is incorporated here. So why do you need this indirect assessment? You have direct assessment that depends on the marks of the students that will allot in your evaluation tools. But here we don't allot the marks, but we get opinions from the students. So this is indirect assessment is nothing but a tool that is used in common. Suppose that you are going for a doctor's clinic. So when you go for a treatment in a treatment means when you are entering, you will be assessed by the doctor with some questions. What kind of symptoms you have? whether you have BP, whether you have diabetes, what kind of ailments you suffer earlier. Just like this, you will be having whether you have some diabetes or heart problem for your ancestors, just like for you, whether you have parents are having, just like the more number of questions will be asked. This is like a survey. These are the things that will help the doctor to give treatment. So the opinions obtained from the students will be adding some more things to improve the performance of the student. And this actually, when you go for a doctor, after getting this answers for this question, the doctor will not give you treatment only with this question. Whether you have fever, that will be tested, and blood tests may be carried out, X-ray may be taken, scan report may be that. So these are nothing but direct evaluation. So indirect is nothing but the questions. Then direct is nothing but the tests that. So both that you are assessed by the doctor, both with the help of the test carried as well as by the question answers you have given. So this is just like that. Direct assessment is based on the marks that are allotted using the evaluation tools. And indirect assessment methods are the surveys that reflect the emotional answers that are given by your student through the feedback mechanism. What perceptions the students have about their learning. So whether they are feeling good, I have achieved this. That type of confidence you have to build in your students. Then for measurement of attainment, you have to first teach the course, use evaluation methods, calculate the CO attainment. Using the CO attainment, calculate the PO attainment. Using the PO attainment will judge our level. And PEO attainment, the final thing that you have to calculate after 3 years of your program. So for CO attainment, direct assessment tools are the continuous assessment, term test 1, 2, and 3, and quiz assignment seminar component. For UG and PG, you can decide, and then semester examination. For indirect assessment, at the end of each course, the course teacher will give a course exit survey. Whether these course outcomes are attainable by the students. So what is the student's perception about the course outcomes? So the feedback will be taken for 20% and your marks direct assessments will be taken for 80%. So 80% of the attainment will be direct and 20% of the attainment will be from indirect, and totally for 100%. From the CO attainment, using the PAM matrix, will calculate the PO attainment. For practicals, it is very difficult to calculate for end semester examination the practical, just because they will be allotted randomly the experiments. They will select the experiment by themselves. They are not CO based. One particular student will be getting the practical a question based on one CO, and another will be getting on another CO. They cannot be tested, but they can be tested in types of all COs using our continuous internal assessment in terms of model practicals, observation, and skill-based or day-to-day evaluation. So for practicals, we use only the continuous internal assessment. And there also you can use the indirect assessment 20% using course exit survey feedback. And the PO attainment will be for 70% from the CO PO mapping, that is PAM table, and from CO attainment directly with the weighted percentage of the PAM matrix, we calculate the PO attainment. Here also we will have indirect assessment. At the end of the 3 years, the students will be given one feedback that is called graduate exit survey about the attainment of POs. And for all the 3 years, the performance of the students, performance of each and every student in the co-curricular and extracurricular activities will be recorded by the mentor, the tutor, and that will contribute to some amount in the 30%. All these activities of the students are recorded from the very first semester itself up to the 3 years, and that performance is also assessed. Then finally, the PEO attainment. PEO attainment is totally an indirect assessment. It is not based on direct assessment. That you should set the standard for your program. How many number of students should be getting placed? How many should progress to higher studies? How many are opting for entrepreneurship? And feedback from alumni, feedback from employers of your students, feedback from parents. And the percentage of this totally should be 100%. That depends on your institution to decide how much percentage, 20% placement, 20% higher studies, 10% entrepreneurship. Likewise, you can allot the percentage totally altogether. You can get it for 100%. But this should be planned in the beginning itself. When your current batch is coming, you have to plan. If there are 45 students, how many of the students should be getting placed? You have to fix. Out of 45, 20 students are going to be placed. You have to fix the standard. And at the end of the 3 years programs, yeah, you have said that 20 will be getting placed. But now, how many have got placement? So out of 20, only 15 have got means that percentage will be taken, 15 by 20 into this. So you have to set standard for everything. How many should get placed? How many should progress for higher studies? The number should be set in the very beginning itself. And it is not that you have to always achieve the target fully 100%. Nobody can cover 100%. The aim of the outcome-based education is not getting 100%, just achieving a better outcome than the previous sets. So for one batch, you'll have 70% of attainment means for another batch, you should get more than 70%. That's our target, not getting a maximum mark. And the quality enhancement plan office, first PEOs are set, then POs, then COs. But the attainment part calculates from the COs in a 6-month cycle. The data will be gathered using the marks from the course teachers as well as from controller of examinations. All this will be recorded by IPAC and the mechanism will be suggested. Advice will be given by the IPAC for CO attainment, for betterment of attainment, and what is the PO attainment. So on a continuous basis from the very beginning itself, for each course, the attainment should be monitored by a committee or by IPAC so that the process of improvement is there. So the suggestions given by the IPAC on a 6-month basis is very, very important for the attainment of POs. After completing 3 years of the program, the students cannot improve. So you had to suggest possible improvements in the intermediate semester itself. And after the PO attainment, PEOs will be calculated. But the PEOs can be decided only after some students are getting placed. That is possible only at least after 2 years. But just because we are all getting women students, then they will be settled within 1 year. And after 1 year, they won't come to the college after getting the diplomas within 1 year. So in the graduation day itself, we can get all the records, whether they are studying, whether they are getting placed, everything can be recorded. So this is a quality enhancement plan we can have. If it is not possible to attain this particular PEO, you can rewrite that PEO, you can set different standard and you can go for it. So aim for a high outcome. So outcome-based education is possible only with the cooperation of the learners and the teachers and administrative people. So the whole institution has to work in order to achieve a desired standard. So the role of IPAC has become very important. Not only the CDDC and the controller of examination, they will be providing only the records, but the appropriate advice should be given. A separate monitoring committee can be allotted for this. We have academic attainment monitoring committee, and that will report it to the IPAC, and IPAC will be formulating everything.